Metalheads! Welcome to another episode of Metal Verbalizers podcast. In this episode, we will verbalize a band that is totally underrated for how long they've been in the game. Today I will verbalize Burning Point. Burning Point was started back in 1999 in Finland. So they have actually been in the game for over 2 decades. You might think that Burning Point is a band that has been in the game for too long to get an episode on our podcast. But the idea isn't only to verbalize brand new bands, but to verbalize new and or underrated bands. With that said, I think that they fit in perfectly. To give you a bit of an idea of what to expect when listening to this band, we can talk about their influences. We're not surprised to see the old greats among their influences, like Judas Priest, Accept, Sabbath, Halloween, and Iron Maiden. Flavors of these bands can also be heard in their own music, but also similarities with bands like Stratovarius, Hammerfall, and Nocturnal Rites. Even though it is clear that they are a power metal band, we can pretty clearly hear the old school influences, which is really cool, I think. Something that I personally really like that they have done, which sort of have to do with their album covers, or at least some of them, that is that they have created their own mascot for the band. They call him the Igniter, and he can be seen on for the first time on the album cover for their album Feeding the Flames. Visually, at least on this album, I personally get some serious Conan the Barbarian vibes. Not too bad. This sort of attention to detail when you have a band is something that I really appreciate. We have seen this kind of thing with bands like Iron Maiden and Megadeth, for example, and it is a really good way to have a theme with your album covers. Right now, I think it is perfect time to have a look at what the band has released in terms of music. So the band started back in 1999, but their debut was released in 2001. This is an album packed with 16 songs. Like I have said many times before, I think that it is really impressive to debut with a full-length album. Because it takes a lot of money and hard work, which can be really hard as a new band. This might also be one of the biggest albums that we have verbalized, actually, on this podcast. In this album, you will find songs like Lake of Fire, Black Star, and Kings and Queens. Now we have reached 2003 and their album Feeding the Flames. This is another 16-song album, and also new for this album is that it is a debut for the band's mascot called the Igniter, like I mentioned before. In this album, you will find songs like Blackened the Sun, I Am the Silent One, and All the Madness. In Blackened the Sun, they use organs that blends together with the guitars to create a seriously fat and heavy tone, which I really like. And we have heard this in other songs as well. Organs in rock and metal is something that I personally have always loved when it is done right. It is for sure done right in Burning Point. The year is 2006, and another album was released. This one is called Burned Down the Enemy. As of right now, we can see that they like to give us big albums. Some of the songs that you'll find in this album are Parasite, Dawn of the Ancient War, and Icebound. 3 years passed by and we got the next album. The album was called Empire and was released, like I said, in 2009. This is also an even longer album with 18 tracks. The album is so long because they are ending the album with bonus tracks of previous songs from earlier albums, as I understand it. And songs that you'll find in this album are Empire, Cruel World, and Let Go. Now we have a break for a few years. We are actually going to make a jump all the way to 2015. So it is a 6-year gap there, where we are going to start by talking about a single actually that was released called Find Your Soul. This is a song that slaps you in the face with power and speed. This single is not going to stand by itself though. We do have a new album, this time named after the band actually. In my personal opinion, I would say that this album is the absolute best that they have done up to this point. It feels like with every song that I listen to, I go, holy shit! This one goes into my playlist. For this album, they have brought in a new singer actually. This time also a female singer. With her voice, we almost get a Battle Beast type of sound. There are similarities in Nora's from Battle Beast and Nitte's voices. Nitte is the singer at this point in Burning Point. I really hope that I pronounce her name correctly. Otherwise, I'm sorry about that. In this masterpiece of an album, you will find songs like In the Shadows, Heart of Gold, and Queen of Fire. Time for some more singles. The year is 2016 and they released Master Them All, Time Has Come, and The King's Dead. Long live the King. As you may have guessed, we are of course going to have an album where these singles are featured. And their first two singles are even going to start off the album. This album is called The Blaze. Together with the singles, we're going to find songs like Incarnation, Dark Winged Angel, and Lost in Your Thoughts. Did I say thoughts? Lost in Your Thoughts, it's supposed to be. Now we have reached an album released in 2018, named after their mascot. This one is called The Igniter. For this album, we have a new switch of vocalist. Nitte, that was the vocalist for the previous two albums, is a fantastic singer. So it would be awesome to look into what she is doing today. Because if she is in another band, I would love to have a listen to it. Maybe that could be a future episode, I don't know. Back to this album though, the first track of this album is called Eternal Flame. As I understand it, with this song, it is supposed to be a part 2 of the title track from their first album. I think that it is cool to do things like this, to look back at the origin of the band. Other songs that you will find on this album are The Igniter, Losing Sleep, and Lost Tribe. The year is 2021, and we get 3 new singles called Hit the Night, Arsonist of the Soul, and Blast in the Past. These singles lead up to the final album that we are going to talk about, and the final release of the band so far. The album was also released in 2021 and is called Arsonist of the Soul. You will find the singles in this album, but you will also find other songs like Rules the Universe, Running in the Darkness, and Fire with Fire. That was my little walkthrough of the band's releases. That makes it a perfect timing to bring in my little segment that I call Erik's Top 5. This is to give you a good idea where you can start when listening to Burning Point. Of course, there are many more gems in their repertoire that could have been on the list. So let's go. Number 1, Parasite from Burn Down the Enemy. Number 2, Gods of Iron from Empire. Number 3, Find Your Soul from Burning Point. Number 4, Master Them All from The Blaze. Number 5, In the Fires of My Self-Made Hell from The Igniter. And since it was too hard to boil down to just 5, number 6, Running in the Darkness from Arsonist of the Soul. This was my list, but now I want to know if you agree with my list, or are there other songs that you thought should have been on the list? After listening to this episode, I want you to head on over to our socials and tell us your own list. If we're talking about the future for the band, then we got some exciting things going on. They have a few gigs planned where one of the recent ones unfortunately got cancelled for an unknown reason. There were more bands involved at this gig, so It doesn't have to be because of Burning Point that this gig got cancelled. What is also incoming is a new album that they have started to record. As of right now, I don't have any more information about it other than that it is in the works and it's on the way. It sounded like there were like 13 songs or something that they have written right now that they choose from. So I don't really know more than that. When it comes to the members of the band, they have had a few changes, like I mentioned, in a few places where they changed vocalists, for example. But as of right now, according to Pete, they have all members behind the band 110%, which is awesome. Pete is one of the guitarists in the band, I believe, that I've had some contact with. The band has been in the game for a while, and we hope for many, many more years to come in the future, and much, much more awesome music for the band. And I think that it is time to wrap things up. So if you feel like you might like this band, don't hesitate to give the band a listen. If you happen to like the band, don't forget to give the band's social media a follow so that you stay updated on what the band is up to next. And if you like what we are doing here on Metal Verbalizers podcast, bringing you new bands to listen to, don't forget to give us a follow as well so that you stay updated on what band we are going to verbalize next. On our social media, you can also give us ideas on what bands that you want us to talk about in the future. Sometimes we also talk to the bands and maybe even have them tell stories about their experiences from the roads. But on that note, thank you for listening. You've been listening to Metal Verbalizers podcast, verbalizing the Finnish power metal band Burning Point.